Hail Satan, everybody. It's a very good day today um, to be talking to everybody. This is a Ministry of Infernal Affairs National Office broadcast from our YouTube channel, my Brotherhood National Office YouTube channel. And I'm very, very glad to be here today and being back again um, with YouTube in our YouTube studio. Something I do on a regular basis, kind of get used to Drew doing these things, right? But today, we've got a really interesting thing to talk about here. Okay, let me turn Black Sabbath down just a little. Okay, and it's a very important, controversial subject that Drew's going to be talking about today. And this was a special request. So today, you could say Drew's back here in the YouTube studio, National Office YouTube studio, by special request. And this time it's by the inside of the Brotherhood of Saint. Yesterday in a conference that I have every week, I was in discussion with one of our high priests, Arundel. And Arundel and I cover many, many things when it comes to the Brotherhood organization, Brotherhood Saint organization, New Generation, as well as some Brotherhood of Darkness projects. And him and I were discussing a lot of things. And we were talking about our facts, where we do say in our facts that the Brotherhood really is not about, sacrifice or any of those kind of things, unless it's a personal sacrifice, right? And, those things are all listed out pretty plainly in our facts, right? Which can be found at brotherhoodofsatan.us. But today, this is about something else. And our discussion yesterday between me and High Priest Arundel was about satanic ritual abuse. And it's a video that the Brotherhood hasn't really, got into doing or talking about. And Drew does love to talk about these things. So this was a special request from inside of the Brotherhood of Saint to talk about satanic ritual abuse. Okay. And in order for Drew to talk about satanic ritual abuse, because I came from a generational family, I like to have my facts straight. So I put some facts on paper. But going back to the time of the satanic ritual abuse, it was a time that Drew himself was coming up in Satanism, left-hand path, witchcraft, the Druids, everything you'd think of under the sun, myself. And I was really coming into being, right? And I myself came from a Brotherhood generational satanic family. Now I'm going to speak a little more about that in a little while. Okay. Much material is going to be coming out in an upcoming book I'm working on called Inside the Brotherhood of Saint, where I talk a lot more about inside a Brotherhood family unit. Okay. Inside of a generational satanic family. That's what makes me qualified to talk about this issue today. Okay. So, the Satanic Panic was also known as Satanic Ritual Abuse, and you'll see it out there with the abbreviations or the letters SRA, right? And it became the scapegoat of a lot of tragedies within the latter half of the 20th century. Now, this is a fact. The same information is on Wikipedia, right? But this is actually true. And where I come in is I've actually lived through a lot of this time periods. Okay, I was born in 1955 myself. You'll see where that figures in a little bit. Okay. Now, Satanic Panic persisted through the end of the 1980s, and many television stars and shows, and into the 90s, were devoting their time to this subject. Oprah Winfrey, Geraldo Rivera, just a few, okay, that talked about this subject on public television, right? But the real truth is there were over 12,000 unsubstantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse. There's the real fact. And when we say unsubstantiated, there was never any proof found or any real evidence that there was any kind of organized satanic cult involved in any of this stuff. Now, remember, what usually happens is mass hysteria hits everybody and people go crazy, right? Okay. But let me continue on. Okay. Now, a lot of things were going on at that time. Like I said, I myself was being raised as a generational Satanist. I was born in 1955. By 58, I was already a baptized generational Satanist. Um, but the influences that went on with SRA, okay, and a lot of law enforcement were involved in these investigations and everything else under the sun, and still, including the FBI, and still nothing was substantiated that there was any kind of what they were trying to say was there was an organized, secretive, satanic cult involved in all this all over the world, right? Okay. And while there could be an organized satanic movement that is worldwide and that is secretly connected, that's a possibility, isn't it? In my case, my only answer to that would be I'll never tell, or I couldn't tell, right? But it's a possibility, and Drew's going to be an objective teacher. That's what my purpose is, to try to be as objective as possible with these things. Okay. Now, I want to say something. There was a lot of influence that went on at that time when these things were going on, the satanic ritual abuse allegations, right? I have to say allegations. A lot of stuff wasn't proved. Now, was there real satanic ritual abuse that was happening? We think there was sporadic cases of it. And again, a lot of these people that were involved in these ritualistic murders, were what we would call today the fruits and nuts of the occult, right? They always were on the outside looking in, wannabes more than real Satanists. Okay, I have to make that statement. Wannabes more than real Satanists. Good example is Slayer. Okay, the Slayer concert, where three Satanist friends that were supposed to be satanic brothers to each other went out in the woods after the Slayer concert, right? And they decided to sacrifice one of their brothers, one of the three, and they did. They ritually murdered him, and then the whole theory was so that he could command a legion of demons in hell after life. Okay, but again, Slayer was blamed for a lot of that when Slayer had absolutely nothing to do with it. Okay, was there Brotherhood? People in the backgrounds of the Slayer concert and the things that were going on in that area at the time? Oh, absolutely. But these were three people that were never involved with the Brotherhood, right? These were three, what I would call adolescent Satanists. Okay. But no organized movement of Satanists was ever discovered anywhere, right? And if there is one, it would be the Brotherhood, absolutely, right? And again, I'm saying I'll never tell. But I can tell a few other facts. Okay, and some of these facts are that generational Satanists are not into ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse. Okay, I have my own reasons for saying these things, and I'm going to get into that from the inside of the Brotherhood, by the way, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But you can't discuss satanic ritual abuse without discussing a book that came out. Okay. And this book was called Michelle Remembers. All right. And it was a book by Lawrence Panzer and Michelle Smith. And now Michelle Smith claimed, and she was from Victoria, Canada, British Columbia, and claimed her mother was involved in a very large satanic cult, and she was ritualistically abused. And she was used in rituals, human sacrifices, rubbed in the blood and body parts of sacrificed adults and children. Okay. And of course, her mother was being described as being somebody involved in this cult, right? And what it was is the author, Mr. Panzer here, Lawrence Panzer, was also a psychiatric doctor. So he took Michelle back in these hypnosis, and a lot of this stuff started coming out, right? Later on, though, many Satanists like myself that actually know psychology ourselves a little bit, right? I took 4 years of it. Um, have looked into the study of this Michelle Remembers as well, right? And a lot of the allegations and a lot of things she claimed just, were never substantiated either. Okay, so this got bear that in mind. Bear that in mind, right? So there was also a 2023 documentary named Satan Wants You that came out from directors Sean Horler and Steve Adams, and they investigated the whole story about Michelle Remembers, okay, and other alleged satanic cult ritual abuse in the 1980s. Okay, guys. Now, remember what Drew's saying. The satanic ritual abuse allegations were never really substantiated. There were sporadic charges here and there that would crop up, where a teenager might be saying the parents were involved in abusing them and this and this and this, right? Okay. Some of it, of course, was no more than hysteria coming from the children, not truth. And okay. Now, where I'm leading to now with this, since we're talking about satanic ritual abuse, and it's a very important thing at this time of the planet, too, for the brother to be talking about it. Because we want people to see we're transparent about even issues like that. Okay. Now, this is where I step in, right? From my left-hand path, which has been my whole life. I was raised a generational Satanist. Okay. I was moved from my bloodline family into another brotherhood family. I was still a baby. I received my satanic baptism. I was only 3 years old. That was in 1958. So I'm going to talk about a few things without going into a lot of things, because I am going to be putting out a book, Inside the Brotherhood of Satan, where I talk a lot about my family and a lot about brotherhood Satanism, albeit generational now. It's very secretive. And all of our activities here in the United States going back to pre-Revolutionary War times. Wow. Which includes Hollywood, the East Coast, Salem, all New Orleans and everything else in this book. It's going to be very, very good. Okay. But what I'm alluding at is this. In my many, many years of being a child raised in Satanism, well before I ever became a high priest at the age of 13. Okay. Way before that, I had been fostered and nurtured by my family. And they taught us children a lot of things inside the safe environment of a family unit where we were protected, and the generational elders in the family were also protected, and they could teach us safely. They didn't get outside bullshit from DFACS, or the education system, or anything for practicing witchcraft or Satanism or any of the dark arts, right? We were always very, very smart. Brothers is a smart organization. And generations will tend to keep to our own more than wanting really ever to be in the public, right? Okay. And what I'm leading at is this. So as a child, we did rituals a lot of different places in the Midwest. Okay, our Glen Ellen coven met in the local graveyard. Okay, I stepped into that coven. I was only 13 years old. I was their new high priest. Well, before I became a master counselor, which was later in 1976. Okay, and throughout all my experience in my first coven that the Brotherhood placed me in as a leader, throughout all that experience and all the other family rituals and rituals in the Midwest that they sent me around to, okay, at Devil's Lake, Wisconsin is one of them, okay, there are numerous places, right, and I never, okay, Loon Lake, our own family cottages on Loon Lake in Antioch, Illinois back then, okay, the whole family had summer cottages at Loon Lake, and we had a whole row of family cottages in a row, right? And us children were being taught a lot there when we were on family reunions and family vacations every summer. And that's where a lot of our rituals were done, and a lot of things were taught to us as children. Collecting the acorns, the biggest black acorns you could find. They used them to make dark druid necklaces and stuff. My grandmother did, and my Aunt Agatha. My Aunt Agatha's cottage was built around an oak tree. In the middle of the cottage was the big oak tree. Council Oak, as she liked to call it, right? And it was a place for the family got together and they discussed the satanic craft, our rituals, and those kind of things. And when we had family reunions, we had big family reunions. We had family sabbatical rituals as children. Now, here's what I'm getting at, though. Drew never one time, being raised in generational Satanism, generational Brotherhood Satanism, never saw satanic ritual abuse. I was never abused myself as a child coming up in generational Satanism. I mean, other than being spanked once in a while for me being a little devil, and having temper tantrums as a child, I'd get spanked once in a while. There was never any satanic ritual abuse. I never saw anybody kidnapped from the outside, brought in and sacrificed by us, or any of these things whatsoever. I never saw children disrespected, animals disrespected. They're our familiars after all, or any of those kind of things. So again, remember something about these kinds of issues where it's about satanic ritual abuse. This is the wise thing Drew wants you to understand. There are still cranks and kooks and nuts out there, okay? Maybe they're not Brotherhood of Darkness or Brotherhood of Saint, okay? And there are a lot of people that can also get out there. They use sex, or even a satanic label for excuses for either a sex club or to do ritual abuse on people. Okay. Again, what I'm saying though is it's not the Brotherhood. Even from inside of our own families, I saw that there was no children being abused. No the sacrifices I attended were sacrifices of our own. Okay. Did I see things like that could be considered morbid to some? Did I see people that were that dedicated they would cut off a piece of their finger? Yes, I did see those things. I never saw anybody forced to do any of those things. To me, satanic ritual abuse is when you're forced to do something that's not your own true will. Absolutely. There's satanic ritual abuse. And this is what Drew really wanted to stress. You can do lots of personal sacrifice in a satanic coven or in a satanic organization. Oftentimes we do give our blood with lancets, and sometimes Drew talks about this many times. All the slices I have on me, and I was never a cutter. But I gave my blood for Satan many, many times, and for many spells and many rituals to help others. Absolutely, I did. But I wasn't taught that. I wasn't told that. I was never ordered to do that. I did that of my own free will and accord. I wanted to, and I enjoy giving the demons something back in return for what the demons do for me. Again, personal preferences within Satanism. I didn't see any satanic ritual abuse going on. Brotherhood of Satan, and with me at the helm, will never condone satanic ritual abuse. In our facts, we even state why children should be 18 years old. Brotherhood of Satan is a new Brotherhood Generation project. It's to bring up leaders into the Brotherhood. Many of us my age, the generational Satanists of today, there's still a lot of us around, but many have died. Many are dying off still. There's a reason for new blood, right? But we don't want that new blood by abuse. We do not condone those things. We are for anything, though, that champions your own personal choice. And those are the only real sacrifices that Drew's ever seen in Brotherhood rituals. Okay? Remember, I've been involved in these. I'm in April 1st. I will be a 67-year Satanist. It's a lot of years of believing in Satan and practicing satanic witchcraft. Much more than any people I've actually known now. They tell me offline I'm the longest running Brotherhood of Darkness Master Counselor. That's why they just made me a Minister of Infernal Affairs not long back. Minister of Infernal Affairs gets to go out and do these things. And generally, if I do a Ministers of Infernal Affairs broadcast, I will be wearing, red infernal clergy colors and my collar. I'm a Minister of Infernal Affairs. And we are charged, it's an assignment I received from the Brotherhood offline. So we're charged with discussing things like this, satanic ritual abuse, right? Because it's far too long we've been seeing a misrepresentation of Satanism. Some of it comes from atheistic Satanism, but a lot of it comes from, excuse me, the outside Christians. There we go. I call them those without. Two things that a real Brotherhood Master Counselor likes to have, of course, right? Is his skull and his gavel, right? Symbols of my office, actually. It means anything that I do when I have these present, which they're always present on my desk, is something important that a Master Counselor wants to say or to pass on or talk about, right? And we're charged with these controversial issues. I've seen many, many things in my time as a Brotherhood Satanist offline. In California, I served as a Master Counselor of Southern California for a year and a half, almost 2 years, before I had to return to the Midwest when my father almost died of cancer, his first bout with cancer. Okay. And I was able to go to lots of rituals. That picked me up in the limousine. And I got to officiate many, many rituals. Some of those were actually called, and they're very secretive rituals, some of them. One of them was called a crucifixion ritual. And again, the person on the crucifix was not being ritually abused. It was a voluntary high priestess. Okay, another story. And there were several other times where there were males that were on the crucifix. Okay, there are anointings. There are things we do with that person on that crucifix. But again, it could never be considered ritual abuse. You got to understand what ritual abuse is. What is satanic ritual abuse? Again, it's when you're doing something in a ritual with people, or even a non-ritual, because they can make it kind of ritualistic, right? That's against somebody's true will. You're coercing it. You've kidnapped them. You're restraining them. And you're doing something against their will. That's satanic ritual abuse. Nothing ever done in satanic ritual, done on a voluntary basis, is satanic ritual abuse. So those clarifications are important to understand as well. Okay. Getting back into my own history. When the book Michelle Remembers came out, I had a copy. Most Brotherhood leadership in the Midwest at that time, like me, had copies of it and studied it. And again, I saw some allusions to some things that are done in generational Satanism that might have been misunderstood by Michelle, very definitely, if what she was saying was true. But again, like I said, a lot of what Michelle said was not the truth as well. Okay. And later, researchers and people have gone out and researched the book up inside out. Like I said, there was a documentary done about it, the whole shot, whole 9 yards, right? But a lot of the influence and heat that went out there about the satanic ritual abuse in the first place, some of it was, I would say 3/4 could have been, and most likely was, influenced by this book, Michelle Remembers. Wow. Okay. Again, Drew just wants to state historical facts from Satanism. I think a 67-year Satanist is qualified to talk about it. if I'm allowed to talk about it. Again, there's another thing about Brotherhood Satanism, right? A qualified Brotherhood leader that does represent online and offline like I do can talk about certain things. Again, it goes like this and then stops. Certain things I'm not supposed to talk about, and they would prefer I don't talk about. But again, I want to assure everybody, we call those Brotherhood secrets, right? Okay. And they are reserved for the initiate and kept from the profane. But those secrets are not anything to do with satanic ritual abuse. Okay. And I'm so glad I was able to be out here talking about this, and kudos and commendations to, High Priest Arundel for even bringing the subject up with me yesterday. It's really a refreshment for Drew to see Brotherhood of Satan members and our own infernal clergy, bringing these things up to Drew and voicing a concern or that they feel a need for us to get out and talk about this. Again, we're the Brotherhood. We're going to be the few. It sounds like the Marine Corps, right? The few, the proud, the brave. We're not afraid to talk about these things. But the thing that Drew gets adamant about is one thing. If we're going to talk about certain things, and again, like I said, I have my obligations of secrecy of things I can't talk about. But if we're going to be out there talking, and you have a good rep out there now, one who's been active with this stuff as long as me, if we're going to be out there talking about it, the most important thing is that we present truth to everybody. Satanic truth. I'm not a person that fabricates. I don't like to bend the truth. My whole life story, I stick to it, and I can't make mistakes on it because it's fucking what I live. That's why Drew's always going out. I don't care about any questions anybody gives me. The only bad question is a question not asked. If you run into a satanic elder or satanic leader that's afraid of questions, guys, and voids you and deletes you and blocks you or whatever, because they usually don't have the answers for you. This goes back to what Drew talks about sometimes, of holding a mantle or an entitlement of something, and you're not even doing it, or you're not even living it. And you've forgotten satanic service all along, right from the get-go. Remember, Satanists are very selfish. Yes, we are. We desire all the wealth and all the things of the world that are ours, that we inherited being Satan's family. Yes. But we've got to remember to put Satan first. I know people think, well, it's backwards. Well, if you're an atheistic Satanist, it is. But it's not if you're a theistic Satanist. It's not backwards whatsoever. The only difference is we have a different perspective. We have that brother generational perspective. And that is, we know serving Satan is going to make Satan want to serve us too. And has always been that way in my life. I've seen so many things, boys. I could talk to everybody here for hours. Drew doesn't need notes. You know what Drew keeps notes on? So he presents satanic truth to you. I keep notes on dates and things like that. I love people to fact check what Drew says. You're going to find the information that is out there. Again, finding it, being able to put it all together into that mosaic, and it makes that tapestry of what's the real picture, is a gift that a lot of people don't have, but you can develop. Some of us hereditaries and generations have gotten in our DNA. We're lucky it was passed down ancestrally to us. Many of my gifts I know are blood, from my blood. They can be developed, though. So the importance of getting out and speaking, right, about things even like satanic ritual abuse, as a satanic leader, it's paramount for me to do these things. I'm not afraid of talking about the issues too, right? We have to. You're going to have people out there that can kind of put a little food of thought on the table for the rest of us to think about, right? No, Drew's not saying obey me, listen to me, take everything I say to the bank. I tell you, after I say something to you, to think for yourself. But just take in consideration Drew, who's a way shower, not a dictator, right? A way shower. kind of showing you these things. That's how I teach. I teach in many, many ways. I even teach in ritual, which is the Brotherhood oral tradition. That's not even on paper, guys. You know, another whole story. But again, in all my years as a generational Satanist, being raised as a generational Satanist in a Brotherhood satanic family, and moving on into leadership in my younger years all the way through today, I have not seen satanic ritual abuse ever happen within the Brotherhood of Darkness or the Brotherhood of Satan. Has there been sacrifices of our own, like I stated earlier? Absolutely. We're blood dedicated Satanists. We even give our own blood in dedication to Satan, in a dedication rite, before we even request initiation. Why? That covenant is the most traditional of all satanic infernal documents. It shows you, by our wanting you to sign that document, that we are the real deal. And again, do we ever make members sign the covenant? We don't make anybody do anything. It's all your free will and accord. That's always been the utmost importance to Satanism, to satanic witchcraft, to generational Satanists. Absolutely. So again, when you're out there studying things out there, if you're going to listen to somebody that actually has the voice of experience, number one, right? And then double check some of these things and do your own research. Do your own research, right? Because Satanists, we represent something too, as personal Satanists, as individual Satanists. Satanic freedom. That satanic freedom alone gives us the right to be able to study and research on our own, make our own informed decisions as Satanists, right? It's good to have luminaries. That's my job. That's my job. We need luminaries. But a real luminary, is not asking you to sacrifice your own sovereignty. How could a satanic leader ask an individual Satanist to sacrifice their sovereignty? No real legitimate satanic leader like Drew would ever ask you to do that. I'm saying we can stand together in power. Wow. And if any of you been in our rituals, that's what you feel. Power and the oneness with Satan, the demons, and our brothers and sisters. No feeling like it. But no, absolutely not. Satanic ritual abuse is not part of our forte. Like we said, is our fringes of the occult out there that do those kind of things. There's nutcases in every kind of spirituality, everybody. Always be careful. The Brotherhood itself, we're careful because of these things. We're careful with people. People we meet on the internet particularly, right? It takes time to know you and you to know us. That's why we invite you to actually offline national events. Those aren't the only things the Brotherhood does, but they're the ones we're allowing to be public until we can invite guests. We can move our people through our initiatory work from initiate into high clergy, but felicitates that. It gives people and guests a chance to come and see the Brotherhood, be there with us, feast with us, have fun with us, learn with us. A rare opportunity that a generational Brotherhood family was assigned to create a new Brotherhood generation, the Brotherhood of Saint. But we're going to still tell you the truth, guys, every step of the way. No one ever will have to self-sacrifice a thing. We don't ask anybody to do that. Okay? Especially your sovereignty. Now, if the Brotherhood feels we each have a personal sovereignty, we would never, ever be involved in ritual abuse with people or animals. Because they have a personal sovereignty as well. Yes, I'm a dark druid. I'm going to tell you straight. We never murdered our familiars. Okay. Long story. Now, there's one other thing I'm going to bring up because we are talking about satanic ritual abuse. Sacrifice. Sacrifice is done in many, many manners. The most important sacrifice to Satan, Lilith, and the demons would be something you give of your own self. Not an outside thing or person. Something you give of yourself. Have there been in our past satanic leadership, per se, that were of the rank that they were in a way kind of like a satanic nobility or a satanic king of sorts? Well, there were honored leaders that were brought up in the Brotherhood, or throughout our cultures, going back into the ancient cultures even. Some were later called divine kings. Long story there. They are absolutely the most dedicated people that practice and believe in any of this stuff. They don't fear death. Death walks next to them, just like me. Death walks next to me my whole way along the path, guys. In harvest time, at the harvest time, Drew becomes death. I'm death. Something I'll never fear. Okay. Those kind of leadership that I just described, that have sometimes called divine kings, harvest lords, we have many names, corn king. The older the craft traditions, the older some of those titles were. They were the most dedicated. And sometimes, just like the cattle in November is brought out to an open field to be slaughtered, and their blood drains upon the earth to enrich the crops for the following year, some of those kings, some of those lords came from that dark tradition. And they allowed the Dark Mother to take their life. Now you're talking some real dark magic. That's real magic. And again, it's not satanic ritual abuse either. Why? 666% free will and accord of that master. Not many give their whole life and their death for what they believe in. We're few and far between. But I am out here. I have another half of my life, everyone. And I am going to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. And I'm always going to make sure I talk satanic truth about all these things. So, kudos again to High Priest Aaron Dell and the people watching my vid. Thanks for your time today. You know, even satanic ritual abuse has to be talked about. And it's very important we talk about it in leadership. Okay? And we don't want the stereotype any longer. That's the whole reason we are out here talking about this. The Brotherhood of Satan will refute those stereotypical things about Satanism every fucking time we see them. Absolutely. Fuck that stereotype. We're not reverse Christians either. We don't abuse people. We don't do satanic rituals to abuse people. Okay. Everybody, we thank you for your time and watching this vid. I hope it's educational for you in the right way. I'm here in the YouTube studio. I'm here in my own office, broadcasting to you. And I placed this video in the public under education so that people can realize, don't always look at Satanism and Satanists in that stereotypical way. Drew's going to be out talking about who we really are as people, a very misunderstood breed. but a very dedicated to Satan breed, and will always remain that. Hail Satan, everybody. Thank you all for your time. Et majorum Satanae gloriam. To the greater glory of Satan, always. May you live long and prosper. Hail Satan. So mote it be.